YouTube, vinyl community, young Rascals fans, random people on the internet, my name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about the Young Rascals' 1967 album, Groovin, released on July 31st on Atlantic Records. This album, I think, is fantastic. It shows the Young Rascals doing something a little different from their usual thing of just the R&B, just the rock thing. They're dabbling with psychedelic rock on this album and, just putting their toe in it and seeing how it feels, whereas on the next couple albums, they were basically jumping in head first, but this album shows them as a unified group out to pursue the same cause and make an effort that sounds really fun and really interesting and unique all at the same time. They had gained popularity in the mid-60s for their cover of Good Lovin' and a string of other hits, and this was their third album, like I said. And by this point, I think they were ready to grow and try something a little different, and they were writing almost all their songs at this point. So they knew that to grow, they had to do their own thing, and especially in a world at this point with the Beatles and the Stones and a bunch of other bands that were really proving themselves with their own material, they wanted to keep up and stay relevant. Very smart move. So let's just jump right into it. I mean, the album opens up with A Girl Like You. It's one of the best songs they ever did. One of my favorites by them. It's got this hopping piano intro, and then these really sweetly sung vocals come on top of it from Felix. And all of that charges up to this pre-chorus, which then falls over the cliff to this bombastic chorus. And it's just this smash song that stays in your head for days. It's just this really bouncy, fun, lighthearted, loving song. I mean, you can't go wrong with this track. I think it's an excellent introduction to this album. And I don't know, I've read some things where people say, like, all right, this is the groundwork for how the rest of the album's going to go. I don't really know if I feel that way, but I feel like it does blend in with the rest of the songs in this album very well. Find Somebody is the next song in this album, and it's got this like searching guitar, and it plays with your stereo, so it'll jump speakers with the riff. It's definitely a really groovy track, and to me, this song sounds like if the Monkees were trying to write the song Disguises by The Who. And that's a compliment, for sure. I'm So Happy Now, this is another great bouncy track, but this time they're doing more of their R&B thing. They're trying to keep the fans that have been there for a couple of years and say, hey, we're still doing this, but here's how we would do it now. Very sing-songy kind of vocal approach, but excellent horn arrangements on this song. It's just great track. That's written by Gene Cornish on guitar. The next song, Sueno, Felix sings this one. Definitely, this is the first song on the album for me that has like that really heavy psychedelic influence. It's got a lot of raucous drums, harmony vocals that border on spacey. It definitely sounds like they were trying to go for a whole new approach in terms of their songwriting and presentation to show that they were more than just an R&B band, that they can do anything that the other guys were doing and be just as good at it. And I think they executed it really well. And then side one ends with the classic ballad, How Can I Be Sure, which apparently was inspired by transcendental meditation. I had no idea about that. I thought that was pretty cool. But Eddie sings this song. His really soulful voice carries it the entire way, and bouncing on top of the swaying rhythm about how crazy life is, and it's only manageable if you got your girl by your side. Outstanding song. I mean, it's one of those like rock radio staples by this point. Side 2 opens with Groovin, the title track, and I think that's one of the most excellent songs of the 60s. I mean, it just encapsulates like this chill, lazy Sunday afternoon, hanging out, doing what we want, not a care in the world. Slow down, you move too fast kind of moment. And it's got birds chirping, it's got this chilled out harmonica, the lyrics are just easy going, there's bongos, there's tambourines, it's the summer of love, man. Apparently, when they had recorded this song, radio presenter Murray the K came in and stopped in and heard what they had done. And Murray was like, you gotta put this out as a single. This is a #1 hit. And the guys were like, no, Atlantic's not really feeling it. There's not even a drum track on it. Like, they're not really into it. And Murray was like, let me see what I can do. And he went out to the Atlantic guys and said, hey, you gotta make this a single, and it's gonna be a #1. Sure enough, it was #1. It was on the charts for 4 weeks. Not 4 consecutive weeks. It was bounced off 1 week because of Respect by Aretha Franklin, but then it came back the next week. And that song, I mean, the reason why Atlantic was scared to put it out is because it was so different from what had been done before. Record companies are always scared of change. They like what works, and they just want to keep that thing going until eventually people get tired of it, and then they'll drop those artists like a hot potato. But good artists don't do that. They create. They do something new. So yeah, Groovin sounds nothing like A Girl Like You. It sounds nothing like Good Lovin', or Come On Up, or I Ain't Gonna Eat My Heart Out Anymore. But it works, and it's just a fantastic song. I think it's an absolutely amazing song. Um, if You Knew is a really simple, effective love song. It doesn't really break any new ground, but I mean, you can't go wrong with those harmonies. The two of those guys singing together, Felix and Eddie, they just had a great vocal blend. So it's one of those things where it might not be the most exciting track in the album, but it definitely works because their vocals are fantastic. The next song, I Don't Love You Anymore, is another kind of chilled out song, like a really lazily strummed song filled with bongos, another one done by Gene. And again, I don't really feel like it breaks any new ground, but I think it's still important to have on the album. I think it's good. Its placement is well placed. That was stupid. It's bordering on bossa nova, which is kind of nice. So again, it's good to hear something a little different, even though they're not jumping, head on into the genre, but their influence is a little bit there. The next song, You Better Run. Holy crap, man. I mean, it's slamming early punk rock guitars and drums. There's this rock beat that doesn't let up. It just explodes into this chorus. There's jamming guitars and organs, and they're screaming their asses off. I mean, Felix sings this song with zero abandon. He's just going for it 100%. And it's amazing. It's one of the best tracks in the album. And just an absolute highlight. I mean, when this song comes on, you just want to jump up and down. I mean, it's a crazy good rock and roll song. So it's kind of nice that, you have Groovin, which is this chill song, and If You Knew and I Don't Love You Anymore, kind of like, they keep you going, but then this song comes on, and you're like, oh, I'm awake, I get it, I'll talk. The next song, A Place in the Sun, was originally done by Stevie Wonder about a year earlier before this, and it's just excellent vocals, excellent like gospel type organ on the background, great track. Felix and Eddie and the group in general do really, really well when they play with the R&B vibe, because that's kind of what their forte was. So obviously they're going to sound good when they do it, but they just have such a soulfulness to their voices that it just carries across through the music, and it works. And then the last track, It's Love, is totally a psychedelic song. It's just this romp, I think a romp is a good way to describe this song. It's a romp. I'll show you the back cover here. I think this is pretty cool too, how they got it lined up like that. So you got Gene, Eddie, Felix, and Dina. And I'll show you the record itself. So on the blue and green Atlantic label, this is a stereo copy. Yeah, overall, I mean, I think it's also cool that it was produced by the Rascals. I mean, not a whole lot of bands got to produce themselves back in the day, so it's cool that they were writing their own stuff and trying something different and producing themselves, and Atlantic was, like, basically on board with them for that, so that's pretty cool. But, it was the last album to be credited to the Young Rascals. After this, they reverted back to their original name of just the Rascals. The Young was added to it by the record company. I don't know why, but I think they thought it was cool or something, but they didn't like it, and they wanted to be just called the Rascals, which is probably what most people call them anyway. It was also their last, like, really big pop seller of an album. I think the album itself went to the top 5, and also number 7 on the R&B chart, which is pretty cool. But it had so many big singles on it. Groovin went to number 1, A Girl Like You went to number 10, How Can I Be Sure was number 4, and You Better Run went to number 20. So, I mean, it spawned a bunch of top 20 songs. The album itself was a top 10 hit. It did really, really well. One of their biggest selling albums, probably. I think it went gold, so it sold it for 500,000 copies, which is great. But the next album after this, Once Upon a Dream, did hit the top 10 and did have the number 1 single for People Got to Be Free. But after that, their albums, even though I think their albums were great, commercially, they were disappointing in terms of sales. They just weren't hitting the same peaks that they had even just a couple years earlier with something like this. So, it's really cool to hear them on this album seamlessly transition between genres of R&B, soul, rock, and psychedelic, but make it a coherent record and still sound like the same band while they're playing with all those different genres and accomplishing the same vision, this shared vision that they knew they wanted to make. So, I highly recommend this album if you're looking for something with, really great pop hits sung with soulful passion, garage rockers sung with, like a chip on your shoulder, and ballads poured out of your heart, and just some groovy tracks sung from a groovy time. It's a really fun album. It's every song on the album's great. I don't think there's one skippable track on it. I really do enjoy the whole thing, and I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I just think it's cool. As for the album art, they came up with the idea, but they didn't draw it. They had someone else draw it. And, yeah, cover illustration by Lynn Rubin, as the back jacket says. So, that's it, guys. This has been the Young Rascals, Groovin'. I highly recommend it. I mean, it's just pure 60s pop fun for me. It's great stuff. So, sounds like my childhood when I was a kid in the 60s. Anyways, my name is Giggens. This has been Album Reviews, and with the Young Rascals, Groovin'. Groovin', man. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.